Welcome to the Felonious Scribe. We're your hosts,
Dawn Hosmer
and Kristine Raymond, writers of mystery, mayhem, and murder. And on today's show, we have a very special guest, author Jocie McKade, and she writes mysteries and kind of like cozy mysteries, sort of, and all sorts of good stuff. So, hey, Jocie, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. Yes, I'm kind of hard to fit in a box. I'm a very eclectic writer.
Hey, we like eclectic around here.
Yes, we do.
and yeah, sorry, I'm like not paying attention to you guys, but my timer won't start. So okay, we're gonna wing this like we always do.
So what do you
So
write,
for
Jocie?
today's topic,
What do you write, Jocie?
I write cozy mysteries, but with a splash of humor, humorous thrillers, and I also write romantic comedies.
Okay, I'll have to check out your books.
Yeah, pretty much most of my writing always has an edge of humor to it.
Good.
Yeah.
Which we need.
Yes, we do. But
yes.
I find really serious situations humorous most of the time, so.
That'll keep you young.
Yeah, it helps. It helps.
Well, for our topic today, it is how detailed, and Dawn came up with this, just so you know, this was not a viewer submitted question. This was a Dawn submitted question. How detailed do the murders get in your head when you're planning them out?
In my
Jocie, how about you?
In my head? In my head is one thing. It's a very dark and murky place. What goes down on paper is usually not quite as dark. I am a big thriller reader. Mm-hmm. Think, Vince Flynn, James Rollins, Robert Ludlum. So my mind can go pretty dark. But when I write them, I have to make them a little more humorous because it's hard for me to write the dark stuff. I can envision it, but it's very hard for me to write it. So most of the things that I envision are funny ways to die.
I love it.
And the last one, Yankee Tenacity, which is book 2 of Mason Dixon, the victim in it was actually one of my readers. I did a giveaway for one of my readers to be in the book. And I told them ahead of time, you may be a victim or not a nice guy. And they were fine with it. It was Mary Young. And I thought, part of it is set at a Renaissance fair. And there's a Renaissance fair very close to where I live. And I worked there one summer, which was an eye-opening experience all on its own. And they have a pub. And so the murder happens in the pub. And I thought, I don't want it to be a typical murder where somebody, gets hit with a beer bottle or something that way. So the person that died has a beer allergy and they die from their allergy.
That's great.
I love it.
And the funniest thing is Mary's like, I think I do have an allergy because I can't drink. So it worked out pretty well.
That's perfect.
Funny.
But it's not very detailed, it just kind of goes through. There's a coroner in the book that's kind of a secondary character, and he knows Mason Dixon, and they always get in trouble, and they challenge his coroner capabilities, let's put it that way.
Now, you've got a 4th book in that series coming out soon, don't you?
I do. It's a little behind schedule because life. It should be out in July, and it's called War Between the Stakes. and it'll be the 4th book and maybe the last book in the Mason-Dixon series. I'm not sure. I did leave a little opening at the end. No, readers don't have to get upset. It does have closure. It doesn't leave you on the cliffhanger, but it does leave an opening if readers do want more from the series.
So Dawn, how detailed do your murders get? Because again, yours are based on your books are based on true stories. So do you find that you have a little bit of leeway with where you can go with them, or?
Yes. And see, that's what brought the question up for me, because we talked about Jocie writing more cozy and then you writing cozy as well. For me, I don't think I could, because my mind goes too dark, and then that translates to the page, and cozy readers don't want to read that on the page. So I think my mind actually goes darker, like Jocie said, than what is on the page, if you can believe that, because it gets pretty dark on the page. But yeah, and it almost tickles me when I come up with like an even darker thing to put down. Like, it tickles me that my mind can come up with something so twisted. Yeah. I recently released my book of very short stories, and my husband's reading it for the first time. So it's microfiction. It's all 140 characters or 280 characters or less. And my husband's reading it, and he's keeping track of how many times the husband dies in the story. It's like, oh, here's another one. And I'm like, read it to me. And he'll read it, and I'll just start busting out laughing. And he's like, it really concerns me that you find these murderous stories so funny. Like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, eh. What about you, Kristine?
Yeah, it does get pretty dark in my mind. I'm one of those people who goes to the darkest depths that I can, and then you can only go up from there.
Yeah.
But I don't really put it in my writing, again, because with it being cozy, like Jocie, I have to find more a humorous type spin on it, or make something humorous out of it. But I don't know if I really could put my dark thoughts on the page. I think it would scare me to have other people read what I really think.
Yeah, I understand that one sometimes, and you wonder where some of these ideas come from, and maybe I should write them down, but under a pen name. You know, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I find on Twitter when I do the microfiction, and my darker tweets always get the most attention, which tells me that lots of people think like this, or they appreciate it. Like, I'm like, I can write something so nice and sweet and touching and romantic. Nobody pays attention to it. Someone dies, they're all in it. So
do you find, both of you, that when you write any of the dark stuff, which I've had this happen, and maybe it's just because I'm weird, and I accepted that a long time ago. When you write dark, or do you find that it sticks with you? You have nightmares or things that, you know, a character, if you write a dark character, that character kind of sticks with you sometimes and actually scares you? Because I have another writer friend who, she's written a very dark series, and she said, I had to quit because of the nightmares from writing this. So is that something you two find?
I haven't yet, but again, I haven't written really dark characters. And except for really one scene in Here to Stay, where the bad guy pretty much got what was coming to him, but it was pretty graphic. Although I did tell it in such a way that I didn't explain it happening. It was more a reference after the fact. I really haven't put anything really dark into any of my stories. So no, it's what haunts me is just the fact that I have all these ideas in my head that I haven't written down yet. Dawn, how about you?
I don't know that it gives me nightmares, but when I'm writing something really dark or really heavy, I have to do something. One, I have to write in short snippets. Like I can't do like a 5,000 word sprint because I need to get out of that darkness. And I have to do something very light afterwards, like watch the Gilmore Girls or listen to a funny podcast or do something to get me out of that dark space, because otherwise I think I would have nightmares. But my brain alone gives me nightmares.
So when you guys read like horror or really psychological thrillers or things like that, do you ever wonder how the author, like, do you ever wonder how they can actually write that down on the page? Like how, not so much how they can come up with it, because we know you can come up with it, but it's like when they're writing it, it makes me wonder, like John Saul, for instance, some of his stuff, it's like, this is really twisted. You know, does it bother him when he writes it, or is it just like any of us just writing a passage in our book? Like, I guess because, you know, as readers, we read in sequence. We start at the beginning of the book and we read all the way through, and it's one continuous story. But as authors, we're writing a paragraph here, a paragraph there, and maybe we're going in order, but we're not writing the whole thing all at once. We are taking breaks. Sometimes we're taking, you know, days or weeks that we have in between that scene we just wrote and the next one. Mm-hmm. So, but it always makes me wonder, like, you know, Dean Koontz, does he scare himself, or does it just come naturally to him?
I think I'd be more scared to be their significant other. Like this person has way too many ways to get rid of me. Oh, that might be a little scary.
I think Stephen King's wife writes like either horror or suspense too. Tabitha King, I think she does.
I've never heard her, but yeah, I think she does.
So they're even keeled.
Well, in horror, I think writing horror would scare me, and I do look at horror and think, oh, how do they write that and then sleep at night? Like, wow, they must have a twisted mind. But psychological thrillers, I just get in awe of, like, ooh, how did they come up with this sickness? Like, this is great. So I get more intrigued with how creative it is. And then I get really delighted when I come up with something really twisted like that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I don't read a lot of horror because I'm a coward and easily scared, but horror doesn't bother me quite as much as psychological thrillers, because most of the horror books I know are pretty improbable. But the psychological thrillers, they can all be real. Oh, and those really, really scare me, because there is a probability of it being real, or it is taken from headlines or news stories. So I think those bother me more than a horror book does.
That's interesting.
I am, you know, it's funny because I know Dean Koontz is classified as a horror author, but I never really, his stuff never strikes me as that. To me, it's just more paranormal, supernatural, thriller kind of thing. And I don't read a lot of Stephen King, but the little that I have is the same thing. So it's
more psychological, I think.
Yeah. It's really interesting to me how the genre gets split up as far as what can be classified as horror that really isn't. Like, to me, horror is, you know, mutants
Frankenstein
putting
and mummy
body pieces together, and you know, stuff like that.
It surprised me because somebody actually referred to Bits and Pieces as psychological horror, and I'm like, I would never consider like myself a horror writer. So that was an interesting label for me to get, I guess.
So Dawn, were you going to read us a little bit of Bits and and pieces?
I sure can. Or Jocie, did you have something or you want me to?
No, go right ahead. That's great.
Okay. I'm going to read just a tiny bit from my psychological thriller, not horror, bits and pieces. I'm going to read from just the second chapter. Today is the perfect autumn day with the scent of fall heavy in the air. The leaves are showing their colors much earlier this year due to early frost followed by a week of warm weather. Part of the reason I chose to live here is because of fall alone. Chandlersville is the perfect small town resting lazily in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Only 20,000 permanent residents live here, but it bustles with life whenever the students are in session at Cardell. And I only read this part because that's before it gets really creepy. So that gives you a very unrealistic view of what the book is like. So if you want the creep factor, you'll have to read.
Yeah, that sounded really, I like that. I want to go to that town.
I know, it sounds fabulous.
It's an awesome book, Josie.
I'm sorry?
It's an awesome book.
Is it? I have not read it. I have to make a point to read that one.
It's
Well, thank you so much.
Have to leave the lights on.
in the day.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest today, Josie. It's been great having you on the show and hearing your aspect
My take on dead bodies and my life.
The dark. That's right.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it very much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks for coming and dealing with all of our technical difficulties.
It wouldn't be me without it. I cause it everywhere I go.
Oh. Well, thank you guys for watching. That's all for this episode of the Felonious Scribe. Join us next time as we continue our exploration into the dark and twisty side of writing. And remember, life's more interesting when you add a little mystery. And if you have any questions, please let us know on social media or by filling out the form below. You can also recommend authors that you'd like us to invite on the show. So thanks so much, and everybody have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.